Hello, welcome back to J&M Electrobikes. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Zero's all-electric adventure tourer, the DSR-X. So the DSR-X is Zero's first all-electric adventure tourer bike. And is essentially a world's first all-electric adventure tourer bike. Now, Zero are really going for the big market here. They're going after the BMW GS, Triumph Tiger, Ducati Multistrada. And the thing is, the electric drivetrain really suits this category of bike. The fact that it's electric means you get no vibration, so for longer distances it's super comfortable, you don't get any fatigue. Because you don't have an exhaust, there's no drone, so you can again, ride for longer without having any issues. So this bike is extremely capable on all of the kind of terrain that you would expect an adventure tourer motorcycle to be able to handle. And of course, we're going to go through all of the bits and pieces in terms of suspension and brakes and that side of things and the drivetrain later on in the video. But it's worth pointing out that the capabilities of this bike in terms of range and performance means that on the kind of terrain that you're most likely to use this, on B roads, country roads and possibly a bit of green laning, you can actually get 4, if not more hours worth of riding before you'd even need to recharge. And if you're anything like me, 4 hours of riding is more than enough before you're going to want to stop for a break. And when it comes to stopping for a break, you're probably going to end up at a cafe or a pub or some kind of point of interest, and where the infrastructure for charging is growing year on year, you pretty much always find that those kinds of places will have a charger compatible with this bike. So you do all of your riding, you pull over to stop for a spot of lunch or to stretch your legs, and all the while the bike is charging up, getting ready for the next leg of your journey. So before we get into the main specs of the bike, let's quickly touch on the design. So the DSR-X is essentially built on the same FST platform that the SRF and SRS are both built on. So you're getting the same frame, the same battery, and the rest of the bike is kind of built around that. You've got almost 28 litres of onboard storage capacity, which is unheard of on any other adventure tourer motorcycle. You've got a huge amount of space in the tank here. You've also got 2 side pods at the front and also another small space under the seat at the rear. So you've got space to carry things like a spare belt, first aid kit, little toolkit for the bike. You've got enough space in the tank storage area for all of your charge cables. So if you're going to take a Type 2 to Type 2 cable, or if you want to take your 3-pin plug adapter as well, that can all fit in there. And then of course, accessory wise, you have a huge amount of options with all of your panniers and your boxes and everything that goes alongside that. The bike itself weighs 247 kilograms and has a load capacity of about 250 kilograms. So again, even with you as a rider plus a pillion, you've still got plenty of capacity there to take a lot more. So if you're taking camping equipment or whatever it might be to go along on your journey, more than enough carrying capacity to take all of that. The DSR-X also comes with an adjustable screen as standard. You've got these really nice knurled adjustment handles here on either side, so you can put it up and down to get it exactly how you like it, so that the wind doesn't buffer you as you're riding along. You've also got about 215 millimeters of ground clearance. So again, for all of the off-road kind of riding, you know you've got plenty of ground clearance there to be able to get over pretty much any terrain. And in terms of the ergonomics and how the bike has been designed, you've got actually quite a low seat height at about 810 millimeters. So it's actually really accessible for almost any rider. Myself at 5'9", I can flat foot quite easily with a bit of a bend in my leg. So even for some shorter riders, you can still actually get on this bike and feel extremely comfortable. You've also got fairly high bar position. So again, ergonomics wise, a really good ratio from seat to bar. You've got a good bend in your knee to get your feet on the pegs. So overall, a really comfortable bike to sit on and to ride for long periods of time. All right, let's get on to some of the main specs of the bike, starting with the motor. This is a different motor compared to the motor that's on the SRF and SRS. This is the Z-Force 75-10X. So they've tuned this motor slightly differently because obviously the capabilities of this bike are different from the more road biased bikes. This bike has 100 horsepower peak and a ridiculous 225 Newton meters of torque. So that's currently the highest torque production motorcycle ever made. And it makes this bike rapid under acceleration, but also gives you all the torque you could ever need for the kind of riding that you do if you're going off-road, doing a bit of green laning. You never have to worry about not having enough power to get yourself up any interesting terrain or stuff like that. So moving on to the battery, this is the same battery that you find on the SRF and SRS. It's a 17.3, and on the DSRX it's fully unlocked. But essentially what you get is, as standard, up to 100% charge is 15.6 kilowatt hours. And then in the menus, you can add the extended range charging option to take you up to 110, which gives you the full capabilities of that battery. So this is a lithium ion cell battery, the same that you find in pretty much every current electric vehicle. And this battery and also the motor are passive cooled. So essentially what that means is there's no internal cooling systems, there's no water coolant or oil coolant or anything running through the battery or the motor. It's purely cooled by the air that runs over it. This is why you can see on both the battery and the motor, it's got some large cooling fins, all aluminium, so it's got good heat transfer rates, and it just means that the air passing by the bike as you ride it will take the heat away. So on the subject of the battery, let's talk about the range. Obviously one of the most important parts of any motorcycle, especially when you're talking about an adventure tourer. You want to be doing big distances in a day. So on the DSRX, you have a range that will depend, just like any other bike, on how you ride it and the kind of places where you're riding the bike. So if you're in a city, you probably squeeze 180 miles out of a single charge on this bike. But that's if you're city centre in the middle of London, stuck in traffic most of the time and averaging 10, 15 miles an hour. If you're taking this out and enjoying some B roads, some country roads where your average speed is going to be a bit higher, you can quite easily see 130 or 140 miles of range out of the bike before you have to stop to recharge. And on a motorway, which is kind of the opposite to internal combustion, this is where they're least efficient. So on a motorway, you're probably going to see 80, 90 or 100 miles of range, again, depending on how you ride and the kind of speeds. Everything environmentally will impact on the range exactly the same as it would on a petrol bike. It's no different on the electric. So with this bike being aimed at that adventure tourer market, you'll probably find that the roads you're most frequently riding on are going to be those B roads and country roads where you're going to average a good efficiency, 130, 140 miles out of a single charge. When it does come to charging, this bike has the Type 2 charging system built in. And that's the type of system that you'll see on a lot of other electric vehicles. So all your destination chargers, the one that you'll find in pubs, in cafes, in car parks and general points of interest, this bike will be compatible with the majority of those. And the Type 2 system is by far the most abundant charging network anywhere, not only just the UK, but abroad as well. So there's hundreds of thousands of opportunities to charge off a Type 2 system. The DSRX comes with 6.6 kilowatt charging rate as standard. So if you're able to charge off a standard car charging network, this is going to recharge from 0 to full in about 2.5 hours. But generally speaking, you're going to take it down to around 20% before you recharge. So you're looking at about a 2-hour charge time. There are some optional extras in terms of being able to either improve your range or improve your charging speeds. So in the tank area, you can either opt for the power tank, which gives you an extra 3 kilowatt hours of battery capacity, taking this bike over 21 kilowatt hours. And that will increase your range by a good 25%. So if you're averaging 130 or 140 miles of range with the standard battery, you'll probably find that you'll easily be able to get 170 or so if you had the power tank fitted. The other option is the charge tank. So you can either have one or the other, you can't have both, but the charge tank will add an extra 6 kilowatts of charging speed. So that gives you a full 12.6 kilowatts of charging speed, which will then recharge this bike in about an hour. And again, if you're going from 20% up, then it's even less than that. So a good lunch stop and a comfort break, by the time you're finished, the bike's ready to go again and you can go off for another 130, 140 miles of riding. So obviously these things are probably the most important specs to do with the bike. You've got your charge rate and your range. So just to reiterate, general riding, B roads, country roads, you're going to get 130, 140 miles of range out of this bike. And charge speeds with the standard onboard charger, 2 to 2.5 hours. Or if you opt for the bigger, faster charge tank, then that's going to take you down to an hour. So you could quite easily do 300 or 400 miles in a single day's riding. Okay, let's talk about suspension, brakes, and wheels and tyres on this bike. So you've got shower suspension front and rear, and you've got separate function front forks, but they give you the preload compression and rebound adjustments all up at the top, so easily adjusted. And on the rear, again, fully adjustable for compression, rebound, and preload. And the preload's easily manually adjusted, so you don't need a tool to be able to do it. So if you know you're going to have a pillion or you've got a lot of luggage that you're carrying, it's really quick and easy to adjust your preload to make sure that the bike is going to perform well, even with a lot of load on it. In terms of your suspension travel, you've got 190 millimeters of travel both front and rear. And the suspension on this, being the Showa Adventure suspension, means that the quality of the ride is absolutely superb. And with a few tweaks to dial it into exactly how you like it or to the terrain that you're going to be riding on, there is really nothing to be wanting in terms of the quality of the ride on this bike. So in terms of brakes, you have the J&M system that all of the current Zero motorcycles have. At the front, you've got 320 millimeter radially mounted discs with 4 piston calipers. And on the rear, you have a 265 millimeter with a twin piston caliper. Now these brake systems are actually linked, so they work alongside the Bosch stability control system. So when you input any kind of braking, the Bosch management system will help decide where that braking force goes. So if you have excess amount of slip at either the front or the rear, it will manage how much braking goes to either end to keep you upright. So you also have vehicle hold control on this bike, which again is managed through the Bosch stability control system. So if you're on any kind of incline, either forward or backwards, you can squeeze the front brake and then fully depress the rear brake, and the management system will hold the bike so you can let go of all your controls. You know the bike's not going to roll away from you. When you're then ready to move on, just a twist of the throttle releases that brake system and off you go seamlessly without any roll forwards or backwards. So moving on to the wheels and tyre setup on this bike, you have a staggered setup, so it's a 19-inch front and a 17-inch rear, which, I mean, if you're looking at most off-road bikes, you'll probably find they have a 21-inch front, but because the DSRX is aimed more at that adventure tourer market, so you're going to be doing probably as much, if not more, on-road than you would off-road, having the 19 and the 17 setup actually works really, really well. You've got Pirelli Scorpion Trail 2 tyres, both front and rear, but you can upgrade your tyres and your wheel setup. So if you know you're going to be doing more of an off-road bias riding, you can get the spoked wheels with much better knobbly tyres, specifically designed for your off-road stuff. But as standard with the cast wheels and the Pirelli tyres, it's fantastic for both on and light off-road use. So we've already mentioned it a few times, but one of the most important parts of this bike is the Bosch motorcycle stability control system that it has. So on the screen, you can manually switch depending on what mode you're in, the kind of riding that you're doing and the kind of terrain that you're on. You can switch between either an on-road mode or an off-road mode. Now obviously switching between those two changes the way that the Bosch stability control system manages the power and the slip in the wheel and power input and things like that. So it has a built-in IMU that manages all of the lean angles, wheelie angle, wheel slip, all of that sort of thing, as well as a constant sensor input from different areas of the bike to help manage the bike in those different terrain areas. So obviously the Bosch system is extremely well known, it's well used, and it's really, really good quality. So it's a great feature to see on the DSRX. And of course, being able to manually switch so easily between on and off-road modes means that as you're approaching a different section of your ride, you can just switch between the two and make sure that you get the best out of the bike depending on whatever terrain you're on. So when you're looking to purchase your DSRX, there's obviously loads of accessory options available for this bike, same as there are for any adventure tourer bike that you might be looking to buy. So you've got lots of different options for storage, for comfort, for design. And for storage options, a huge amount of storage can be found on the pannier rack. So you've got top box and 2 side cases. And of course, your storage of this capacity sometimes can be reduced on internal combustion bikes because of where the exhaust runs. But on the DSR-X, there's no exhaust, so you can make full use of all of the additional storage on here. Of course, as we said earlier, you do already have 28 litres of onboard storage, so it's a massive benefit to have all of that extra. You've also got other things like the touring screen, the bar protectors on the side, you've got skid plate, centre stand. There's loads of other options for the aesthetic side of things. So a lot of the parts on here that you see that are silver, you can also get them in gloss black. So depending on how you like the look of your bike, you can chop and change and make it look exactly how you want it to look. Of course, you can also spec what we call the adventure pack. So you get a bit of a financial discount based on the fact that you're buying it as a full pack rather than the individual parts. But for the adventure pack, you get all of the things like the taller touring screen, you get the bars, the skid plate, the centre stand, you get LED indicators, you get LED fog lights, and all of that comes also with the pannier set. So if you're looking to get your DSR-X, you can just spec the adventure pack and you get all of that stuff all pre-fitted by us as a dealer. So when it's ready for either collection or delivery, it's fully spec'd out, ready to go. So you can just jump on it and start your adventures. So the last thing to touch on is some of the additional features and technology behind the DSR-X. So Zero motorcycles have their own app. What you can do through the app is actually connect directly to the bike via Bluetooth, and it also has a GPS connection as well. So even if you're not next to the bike and you've got it plugged in charging somewhere, you can still open the app and check the state of charge, so know exactly when you've got enough charge to get back out there, jump on the bike and start riding again. There's also loads of other features built into the app, so you can get all of the information like odometer readings. It's got all of the efficiency readings, so you can see how many watt hours per mile you're averaging, how many miles you did on your previous trip. You've got ride capture on the app, so you could, again, before you go for your ride, open the app, go to the ride capture settings, and then as you're riding, the GPS units will capture your ride specifically, so you can see for all of the miles that you're covering, how efficient you're being, how fast you've been going, what kind of mileage you've done, all really interesting information to be able to see after you've been out for a ride. You've also got all of the navigation side of things as well, and with the heads-up turn-by-turn navigation display on the screen. So when you go in the app, you can select your destination, it automatically calculates your route, and then when you hit start navigation, as long as you've got your Bluetooth pairing with the bike completed, it will automatically show up on the screen when the bike is in active mode. And as you're riding, it gives you all of your distances to your next turn, it shows which direction you're going in, so hopefully you never get lost. There's also lots of other stuff that you can interact with directly through the app or through the bike's menu screen. So things like setting charge targets or scheduled charging. So I mean, that's really useful, specifically if you've got a electricity rate when you're at home that gives you cheap electricity during the night. So if you know that between, say, midnight and 2 AM, it's going to be a fraction of the price of your normal electricity costs, you can schedule the bike to start charging and finish charging during those times. So again, all helps to reduce the cost of running an electric motorbike like this. Now the app's a really, really helpful thing. Like I said, there's loads of information in there. And not only can you interact with the bike and find out efficiency and capture rides, it gives you all of the live data as well for your bike. So like I said before, if you do have your bike plugged in somewhere else and you want to check on it, make sure the state of charge is where you need it to be before you leave, all of that information you can get through the app via the GPS as well as the cellular and the Bluetooth connection. So it's all really useful. What we're going to do now is we're going to take this bike outside and we're going to give a quick demonstration on some of the other features, one of which is really, really useful, something that you use way more than you think you would, which is the parking mode on this. So let's get this bike outside and we'll give you a quick demonstration. Alright, so we've got the bike out and I just want to show you one of the best features on the DSR-X, which is the parking mode. So you get a reverse and forward creep within the parking mode itself. So if you want to come over and I'll show you exactly how you activate it. So switch the throttle into its off position, press the menu button, parking mode comes up at the top there. As soon as you're in it, reactivate your throttle and it goes straight into reverse. And now as soon as you twist the throttle, it goes backwards. And then you can use what would normally be the cruise control button to toggle into a forward creep. So when you're doing your parking maneuvers, you can go forwards, stop, back into reverse, and it just saves you having to go in and out of the menu all the time and allows you to park pretty much wherever you want. So obviously this feature is really useful if you're on a hill, forwards or backwards, if you're on loose surface or gravel, that sort of thing. So really happy that Zero have put this into the bike, and it's such a useful feature. So I hope you've enjoyed the spec talk on the Zero DSRX all-electric adventure tourer. If you've got any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments. We will have some more videos coming of ride review with this bike, so keep an eye out for that one. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video.